Well, hey, everyone, it's Jeff and Jamie, and we're back with you on our Streaking podcast. How's everyone doing out there today? Jamie, how are you?
Doing great. Good morning.
Good
afternoon.
Good morning, good afternoon, whichever way it is. We are so excited today because we have a very special guest, someone who has been a streaker for more than 100 and some odd days so far, and we'll tell you a little bit more about her in just a second, but we are really excited to have her on. She, just to give you a little bit of backstory, and I'll tell you her name in just a second. Hang in there with us. Little backstory. My father passed away in June of 2020, and we were all gathered together, and we happened to have some friends of ours come to the funeral, and it was kind of nice because this was during COVID.
Right. We were happy to see people. Yeah,
we were very happy to see people, and so we had Mauree and Dave Pierson come to the funeral and just to, mourn with us and also celebrate my dad's life and everything else. And as is the case, oftentimes we will sit down and people will ask us what we've been doing. And we'll bring something up like, well, we've been working on a book. And then usually they'll say, ask something like, well, what's the book? And then we sheepishly say,
it's called Streaking. And then everybody always looks at us like, what does that mean?
Yeah, no kidding. What in the world? Streaking? Anyway, so we had Mauree and Dave there, and we have our special guest on with us today, who is Mauree. Mauree, how are you?
Great. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thanks for coming on. Now, Mauree is an elementary school teacher, and she has her undergrad from the University of Utah. She's been teaching elementary school for 13 years, and right now is teaching in the 5th grade. And we were so fortunate, Mauree, to get from you a email that just talked about your streaking journey and what it is that you've done. And what we're going to do is explore a little bit of all of that as we talk with you today. So we're excited to be doing that.
We were so excited to hear from you. When we talked with you, we were in the process. Well, we had finished writing the book, but we hadn't published anything yet. And we were so excited to have someone to talk to about it. And then months later to get your email was really, really exciting for us to hear. I love hearing other people's stories of if they've had experiences of it and kind of what their experience has been. So I'm super excited to talk to you and ask you questions about just kind of what your journey's been like and how this has been in your life.
Well, I have to admit something right up front here that when we talked, I felt like I was a little bit critical of the idea of streaking, to be really honest. And I think I questioned you a little bit and you answered my questions. And that questioning, after I've had some success with it, I decided I needed to send you a message. It was maybe an apology in some sort of way to say that I may have been a little too critical because I had found such success in it as I'd given it a try. So the email may have had an undertone.
Well, we saw it as just a tremendous thing. In fact, one of the things that we really appreciate is people who question it, because that's what we did right up front. Yeah. I mean, we questioned it for 5 years. I mean, right. we were on our own journey to figure out what it was that was working for us. And we feel the same thing with, any individual that that looks at streaking, and you look at the first law of streaking, which is make it laughably simple, and the first question comes up is, how can that even work? I mean, how is that even going to be anything that works? So,
and I think we've all had so many experiences of trying the new thing or hearing the new thing, and being like, I've tried a couple new things, and I feel the same way that you do. That honestly, it takes some time of trying it before you're going to believe that it works. Because I feel like that's what happened with us with as we started our running streak, and it started to work. And then for you, Jeff, when you started your flossing teeth, and for me, it was when I started reading to the boys.
Yeah.
And writing in my journal, a couple of things that I had been trying to do in other ways for a really long time, and had just not anything sustainable.
Right.
And so it's amazing when you have something that you start sustaining it does that, taking that time, you're like, okay, it's starting to work now. Maybe this will work. Maybe there's something here. So
let's start with you at the beginning. So when we sat down underneath that tree and we were talking back and forth, and give us your honest thoughts, because it's really it's significant to know exactly where you were, because there's a lot of people who start in the very same place. So I remember, because we were in the backyard. Do you remember this? And we're sitting under the tree, and we're on kind of this really, it wasn't that stable. That's what I remember. And we were chatting. Tell us a little bit about some of your first thoughts and impressions, and then take us forward from there.
Well, I guess the first thought was really that it was another way of doing a goal.
Yeah.
And I guess I've made a lot of goals over the years. And so when I was really kind of processing how you were talking about it, I was like, I didn't want to feel the failure of another goal. And I had been having some success with really eating healthy and feeling better. And so I really started thinking, like, I want to do a different goal. I don't want it to be like a healthy eating goal. I want to do something different. And so our conversation that we had really spurred me to thinking, like, I want to try something different. Like, I want to try a streak that I have never set a goal for. And mostly that was because I wanted to kind of have a fresh start, to be honest. I wanted to, like, not something that I'd tried for the last 30 years to do, and I wasn't that successful. I wanted to, like, pick something new. So that kind of was the life of my first streak. And I didn't really understand everything at that point that I know now about streaking. But what I did know was that I thought if I could stop eating bread, if I could be bread free, it would actually make me more vegetable, fruits. Like, I would choose other things, because I still need to feel like still have to eat. And
you still got to have your carbs and stuff, right? Yeah.
And so my first streak was that I was going to be bread free.
Wow.
And I really did think that this would be the biggest bang for my buck if I put effort into this. And my entire life, my weight has gone up and down, up to like 100 pounds down. I mean, I have lost.
Wow. You've been all over the place, huh?
A lot of weight. And I really wanted to test to see if I could just be more sustaining and constant in my life. I was exhausted by the end of a workday, and I was really tired of that exhaustion. I wanted more energy. So that was my first streak, which I think I'm on day like 240 something. I haven't checked today.
Wow.
Do you hear that? That is awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Now, I would say that streak right there. Now, one of the first law of streaking is make it laughably simple. And so did you see that as laughably simple, or were you just at that point where you just needed something different? And you're like, you know what? I'm going to do this.
Well, I think I'd had healthy eating. Like, I made that a goal maybe before, but I felt like the COVID time period actually, like, kind of was an awakening to me that I'll never have as much time to focus on these things with myself and my family as I do right now. So let's take advantage of that.
Right.
And so I did make that choice, that I thought, I have been eating healthy, but what's one additional thing I could do? Yeah. And so that one additional thing was a bread-free streak.
Yeah.
So it was something that you had been working on diligently, and but you wanted it to be sustainable, something that you're like, how can I get this to be a consistent thing? And that's one of the things that I think is super important as people look at setting their streaks, is that laughably simple is something you have to decide for yourself. What one person's laughably simple may not be another person's.
Right.
Your laughably simple of no bread would not be my laughably simple. That would be very difficult. But I love that you said, I'd been eating healthy. You'd been having this on your mind. You had some groundwork laid already. And this was an opportunity to take it to a place that you'd been wanting to go to, and a methodology to kind of help you get there.
Right. Yeah. So with that then, so you walked away from our conversation and you set this streak. Now, how soon after you walked away from the conversation did you set the streak? Because you said you had a little bit of doubt there. Yeah. So
yes. Well, the drive home from Denver to Salt Lake City, Utah is a long drive.
That is.
So I really was thinking those hours of driving, like what would be something I would want to streak.
Yeah.
And I had a couple ideas in my mind, and some of them related to things I'd tried before and hadn't really been that successful. So I think that's why I was like, I'm going to try something brand new. I've never done it before. I'm going to see how it
Right.
goes. So that was, I think that I found its success in other areas of my life. And so it spurred on other streaks. But that initial success is really kind of what got it going, I think.
Yeah, it's critical. And with that initial success, as you started to have that, about how many days in then would you say on your first streak did you start to look at it and say, you know what, maybe now this is working. Maybe it can apply elsewhere. Do you remember? I mean, how long in was it?
I don't remember the number of days, but
Okay.
I would say it was a gradual process of self-credibility.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you see, and I just had it in my phone as the day I started, because I remember you telling me you have to, if no record, no streak.
Right.
I wrote it down. This is what I'm going to try.
That's awesome.
And so I wrote it down to make sure that I had a start date and I wasn't wasting any of my days. And I started that day. The next day is actually the day that I started.
Oh, wow.
That streak.
Oh, that's great.
And so it was in July, the beginning of July of 2020. And I've just feel like it's been growing since then. And I know I trust myself that it doesn't matter how good the bread looks on the table when they bring that warm plate of bread out to me. My streak number and my self-credibility matter to me more than the number.
That's so good.
It is, isn't it? How come you laugh?
Just because I feel like it can be, self-credibility is a hard fought win. It's a hard thing sometimes to find. And so it's, to me, really valuable. It's really valuable when I have those things in my life that I feel like, okay, I feel good about this and I can have confidence in myself in this thing.
Yeah.
And so I guess when you're saying that self-credibility of being able to say, I'm going to say no to this thing because I know I can and I've been doing it and I'm going to keep doing it and I feel good about myself because of it. That is just, to me, it's a super valuable thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
go ahead.
I remember Thanksgiving. I kind of had like this mind, like, am I really not going to have a role with my Thanksgiving dinner? Right. And it was interesting because I'd given a lot of thought to it before. Like, is this streak going to stay alive even over Thanksgiving, Christmas, all of this? And all of a sudden I sat down and I didn't really care if I had a role or not.
Wow.
And I didn't know what had changed because there were years that I could never have passed on that role.
Yeah.
And now it didn't really matter if I had a role or not. I wasn't so worried about the role. And so I think I was worried about other things.
Right.
Yeah. So now you've got self-credibility. So internally, well, we talk a lot about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic is what I look to inside and the self-credibility that you have with yourself. That was kind of repetitive because if you have self-credibility,
very
you have it
good.
with yourself.
You made the point.
Okay. then you look at it and it gives you this opportunity to not be as influenced by extrinsic things. And that is a very powerful position to be in.
Totally. When you can feel a little bit like those extrinsic things don't have as much control and power over you, I think that's part of what leads to that self-credibility. It's those moments when that intrinsic does overpower that extrinsic motivation or whatever pressure is on us. That's what really lends itself to that self-credibility and gives us that strength to know that we're like, okay, I've made these decisions and I'm sticking with it.
Okay, so that brings us to the point. You're starting to you've got confidence in your first streak. You're really doing well, and you're feeling fantastic. You've got your physical health where it needs to be. And by the way, most streaks start physical. That's what we found. A lot of streaks start physicals. Ours started with running.
Yep.
Yours started with no bread. We've had many other streakers that talk to us about.
And I think part of that is because how we feel physically just affects so much of our life. Mm-hmm. And so oftentimes when we think about wanting to improve something, a physical thing often comes first because we want to feel better so often.
So if you can get that foundation, what is it? Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that's one of them. As you get there and then you get that foundation, you start building on it. Not
that it has to be a physical streak to start with. I mean, not everybody does, but I have noticed that, like you said, a lot of people do.
I think because there's so much failure in because we set goals. Like what you said, Mauree, I love how you put right up front, I've set so many goals. And this was one of the things that Jamie and I struggled with, is we had set so many goals, so many things that we had wanted to get to. And we'd succeeded at a couple of them, but a lot of failure too.
Well, and I really identified with when you said, I just didn't need another thing to feel guilty about in my life. That's what took me so long. You got super excited about setting another streak at the beginning, and I was hesitant for a long time, months. So that's why when you say, well, I was kind of critical of it, I totally get that, because I feel like I was the same way. I was totally the same way. For many of the same reasons, this feeling of, I've tried these things before. I don't need another thing to feel guilty about. Sometimes it's easier to just ignore the thing I want to improve on than keep trying and feeling like I'm not ever getting better at it. That can really wear you down sometimes. The thing that's been so inspiring for me, and where we've really talked so much about it, is when I can make it simple enough to be consistent, that I look at it and I'm like, okay, there's no reason not to do this. I can do this.
Yeah.
I can do this.
You can make this happen.
I can make this happen.
And that's where I think, Mauree, with you made the switch. There was somewhere along that road that all of a sudden it switched and your self-credibility went up, and you said to yourself and believed that you could actually do what now you're 200 and some odd days into your streak, right? There's total belief there that you can do it.
Right.
So that brings up then, all right, so now you're a teacher and you're in the classroom and you have been doing your own personal streak. Where did the light bulb go off, or when did you think, you know what, maybe I can apply this with my students? Go ahead.
Had you set a couple other personal streaks before this?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I was doing like some spiritual streaks about kneeling every day, and I had like a few other streaks that I was going. I was kind of building some momentum on.
Okay.
And I knew I was entering a school year unlike any other.
Yes.
And
oh man.
I was like, okay, like in our district, they changed us to a 4-day week with students, and I would have only 4 days instead of the 5 that I generally had.
Wow.
Okay.
And I saw the students came back and they were so eager and happy to be there. And I thought this was a major change from when we ended in the spring.
Yes.
Those kids wanted to be at school.
Yeah.
And I want to be successful at what I do every day. And so we got started in the year, and I was my heart was heavy with the fact that they really did not know their math facts.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
And I thought, how am I expected to teach adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators when the students don't know their math facts?
Right. They're still counting on their fingers.
And I had kids tallying. They were making little tally marks.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, we're really good as teachers at identifying problems. I think in the world in general, we can identify problems really easily.
Right.
But I thought, I think I'm in the business of educating children.
Yeah.
And I listened to your podcast, and you work with companies and everything. And I thought, well, I'm in the business of educating children. How would this apply?
Yeah.
And so I really decided that we kind of have two types of streaks in a way. One type is like, this is for me and my improvement and becoming who I want to be.
Yeah.
And then the other streak, as my teacher streak, was that what I needed and wanted for my students.
Mm.
And I already know my math facts. I'm really good at it. So I decided that this was really one of the streaks. This was a streak for my kids, right? I wanted them to know their math facts. And so I kind of did a little research, like what would be the best program to use, or what, should we do jumping jacks? What should we do?
Yeah.
And I decided there was a math program out there. And I decided my streak with my kids is going to be that we'll do math facts daily. That was a simple streak.
Simple.
And every single morning when they would walk in the door, that was the first thing that they would do.
Oh, wow.
So it was a self-start. They could walk over, pick up their computer, get it done, and then they'd look to the board for the next step. And so really our first 5 to 7 minutes of the day, that's what they're doing, is their math facts. And I've had kids come in late before, and that I've said, oh, go grab your computer. And they said, oh, I was waiting for someone at home and I just did it.
Oh, you're kidding, really?
So, I mean, it's just like they know, and I've told them before, I know my math facts. I'm doing this for you because I, as a teacher, want to give you that moment every day to focus on it because it's that important. So we do record our streaks. Like every other week, I have a page that they pull out and they put their improvements.
Yeah.
And then I always ask them, what did you notice? And I love what they notice. And I get tears in my eyes when they are like, we're getting so good at math facts. And, and I just thought it was one more thing that you were going to have us do, but it's really making a difference. And so the kids are now the driving force, even though I allow the time every day.
Yeah.
Right.
Students see the success, and they have learned a principle that when you focus on something every day, you will be successful.
And our conversation with Mauree will continue. We had such a wonderful opportunity to talk with her about so many things in education. Coming up, you'll hear her talk about how their school set a streak. Yes, that's right. Their school set a streak. Jamie and I just had such a fantastic time talking to her about that, as well as other opportunities that she's had with her students. So on the next podcast, you're going to hear from Mauree a little bit more. In fact, it'll be for the next podcast and the podcast after that. So dynamic was the conversation. Hopefully you're doing fantastic. Have a wonderful day. And if you have some questions for us, always, give us an email at Jeffrey, Jefffery, at streakingmastery.com or Jamie, Jami, at streakingmastery.com. Until we talk again, keep streaking.
It's the small and simple things that make you grow into what you're hoping. You're in a hurry, don't even worry. It's too simple not to do. It's the little things that make a better you. A better you.